Unlike Kyoto action games, I actually grew up on fighting games, even though it was mostly just Smash Bros. And the PS2 Naruto games. I've started to play a ton more fighting games as time went on, part of it being just because back then I didn't really own much consoles growing up that had fighting games with characters I was familiar with. I did have a PS2 granted, but by that point, finding PS2 games post PS3 launch got more annoying, especially with a kid without much money. There was that, and I always had the notion that fighting games were hard to play, which now I don't really hold as much considering this video's title. And while I played quite a bit of Smash growing up, getting to experience a whole bunch of different fighting games like Tekken, Street Fighter, and other 2D ones, I can say this made me understand and appreciate the genre a whole lot more. And with this video, I kinda wanna go over the reasons why I think this genre is pretty cool and why I ended up loving it. One of the reasons definitely has to be the wide variety of playstyles you can have in quite a bit of fighting games. You can have zoners, rushdown, technical characters, and a few more, and even characters within that archetype can act somewhat differently from each other. Like for example, characters like Min Min and Richter in Smash Bros. Both are zoners but have different means of doing so. Richter can spew out projectiles while having somewhat normal attacks, while Min Min has some tricky arms that you have to deal with, and they can be kinda weird. I like this since in a lot of cases no two characters feel the same, despite again being the same archetype. On a similar point, I actually like how there actually are a bit of cases where characters can be played in completely different ways. Like for example, a Guile from Street Fighter or Link from Smash Bros. Can be really good zoners or some pretty cool rushdown characters. They both have some really great moves that work well from a distance, and then once you get in, they also have some really nice close range attacks. The variety of some characters I think is amazing and is an aspect of fighting games I love since it makes the characters a lot cooler and gives you a lot more options. And this also makes two players play the character not the same exact way, and that's another cool part. I also love, despite a lot of the games in the genre being in 2D or 2.5D, they can still have some really cool gameplay mechanics. And more often than not, two fighting games don't really feel the same, at least more modern ones, and even ones within the same series. For example, for the latter, something like Street Fighter 3 and 5 feels really different to me, where 3 feels a lot more weighty and 5 is a lot more fast-paced and offensive. And then even Street Fighter 5 has stuff like V-Trigger and V-Skills, which either adds extra moves to the character or buffs them, and I feel it's a very cool mechanic for the series and just makes the game feel a lot cooler in comparison to the other games, at least to me. And then even when we compare it to other games like Guilty Gear Strive, it has a mechanic called Dust, where it's used for launching opponents into the air when you hold the button. And then it also has attention gauge, which is a normal meter, but it actually increases by being overly offensive, and it decreases by being defensive, and I like that just because there's a lot more thought into how you play instead of just, attacking. Another aspect of fighters that I really like is just the variety within the genre. And what I mean by this is that there are a bunch of different types of fighters out there. Like we have the normal 2 and 2.5D games like Street Fighter and Guilty Gear, team-based ones which are also 2D, but at least they have that element, and stuff like that would be counted as something like Skullgirls. And then we have platform fighters like Rivals of Aether and Smash Bros. And then we also have 3D arena ones like Tekken and Soul Calibur. And I kind of want to go over why I kind of like all of these different fighting game styles, starting with the team-based one. And I actually really think this one's cool just because you will actually have more often than not up to 3 characters you can pick from, and that adds quite a bit of depth because not only do you have to deal with your opponent's assists, but also just the different matchups here. And with stuff like Skullgirls, since that has a decent roster, you're going to have to deal with like a lot of different matchups if your opponent decides to go with 3 different teammates. Then we also have platform fighters, and I'm actually pretty familiar with this one just because I play a little bit more here. And these are really fun if you ask me, since you have slightly bigger and cooler arenas to fight in, and this helps you consider your options more. Not only you have to consider how the arena is mapped, you also have to consider the size of your character and just much else. So for example, bigger stages can actually be great for zoners since their attacks naturally take up more space. And I think the addition of different platforms can make it cool since, you can do cool combos off them and spacing is more important here. We also have 3D fighters, and while I'm not familiar with these, I actually still find them pretty fun. There's not much of an air game here in comparison to the other ones, but I think that really makes them stand out. And these I find cool just because the ground movement is really fluid and just the attacks feel a lot more weighted here, and I think pulling off strings can be pretty satisfying. And then when you just have normal 2D fighters like, Street Fighter and Guilty Gear and stuff like that, those ones are just, for the most part, the most vanilla if you ask me, but they can still be fun since, again, a lot of them have varied systems and just feel really fast paced like most other fighters. But still, if you want to go for a fighting game just to start off, I just say go with a normal 2D one like the ones I mentioned. And while this point might not be the biggest one, I also think that if a crossover happens, you can get a really unique version of a certain character, like for example Akuma in Tekken 7 and Terry in Smash. Akuma ends up having his meter from Street Fighter, which lets him do EX attacks, and the other characters can't do that, so you have to reconsider how you approach him. Terry, on the other hand, in Smash Brothers, he has his Go meter, which lets you do certain inputs that obviously lets you have a much bigger attack. This stuff I find cool just because, again, it's a unique character in the game, and they might have a cool gimmick that you might not be familiar with. And there's a whole bunch of other smaller stuff that makes me love fighting games, like the ease of access a lot of modern fighting games have, the animations, and how fast paced it can get. There's that, and just the amount of depth a lot of titles can have with character movesets, matchup, stages, and just whatever else. Games in this genre are definitely my go-to pick for any multiplayer action, whether that's local or online. And while I'm not super competitive in these games, there's a lot of fun you can have on the casual side, whether you're just doing some dumb rule set or you're just trying to have a fair fight with your friends. And I really want to know what are some of the reasons you guys love fighting games, and let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also follow my Twitter, which is in the description below. Again, see you guys later.